Okay. May I have your attention, please? Take your seats also. Thank you very much. According to the plan, I thought that I will just introduce our next lecture to you, but now I realize that it's strongly unnecessary. So the only words that I can say is please welcome our next guest, Mr. Jacek Saryusz-Wolski.
Kto nie zna polskiego? Tak, angielski? Tak jest konwencja? Okay, I have been asked to, first I finished the same school which you are from ages ago, but I just told one of your colleagues in the lift that I was the last male class. There were no girls in my school. In Copernic at that time. Okay, I was asked to sum up a conference which I did not attend, which is probably the most challenging task one can have. I'm sorry to be so late, but I just came from Brussels straight, and I was trying to look and to see what's challenging in the topics we have been undertaking. One is technology. I'm ignorant on that. Second is nature. I'm also rather ignorant. And then this is society, your last panel. But looking on the topic, or the main topic, which is asking for about future and global and local problems in the life of a man, of human or man, what is missing from my point of view is regional. I'm somebody who has spent 20 years at the university, at Łódź University here, in Łódź, doing research and teaching on regional integration. Local, whatever we call by local, it can be something which is very grassroots. Then you have regions within the states, then you have the states, then you have the world. But between the state level and the level of the world as such, or global level, you have the regional groupings of states. Obviously, I think about the European Union as such. So the question which you have been asking yourself, what does it mean in the life of people to face local, global, and I add regional, in a continental sense, challenges in your life. And the best example one could give is that various types of problems which mankind encounters, be it on local, regional, or global level, have to be distributed and faced and solved, hopefully, and those levels where they can be best done. Behind is the huge theory which is called subsidiarity principle, a principle which is enshrined already in the European Union treaties, which has sources in the social teaching of the Catholic Church, which says that be it family, bigger, and then global communities, you have to pick up the levels and to place the decision-making at those levels which allow you best to solve the problems. Whenever you face or tackle the technology problem or nature problem, or you try to solve the problems of the society. The problems of society today are twofold, namely, it's about economics and it's about politics. And there's another principle which accompanies the principle of subsidiarity in the EU treaties and EU doctrine and European integration practice, is the principle of solidarity. Once you establish that you cannot solve the problems of, let's say, environment, or security, or energy on the national level, which is roughly the statement of the fact which we do face now in the European Union. We are together, 28 states today, at the beginning it was 6 of us, in order to tackle the problems for which every single member state is too small. There's such an anecdote or even a joke saying that in Europe there are no big states. There are only states who do not know yet that they are small. Obviously, all European states, be it Malta or Germany, they are small in terms of the global economy, global society, and global problems. And this second principle says that once you know already, and we know that environmental problems have to be tackled on a continental scale, that energy problems a continental scale, more and more being given the wars around us, in our southern neighborhood, between Middle East, Ukraine, and so forth. We have to act together, otherwise we are unable to cope with. That this approach has to be based on the solidarity principle, which means that you help me and I help you, or some of you who have been reading literature of Dumas, we call it principle of musketeers, one for all and all for one. It's very difficult. I have to say that today, I'm coming from Brussels today, I don't know whether they have struck a deal with Turkey or not. When I was leaving, not yet, the immigration from Syria and not only. The problem is that we are going through the moments of erosion of the principle of solidarity. Societies, nations refuse to share the burden of the others. There's migratory pressure, and Brussels says, please, let's share the burden. Let's everybody do something about it together. And there's a lot of egoism and refusal. The same goes for economics. When there are countries in crisis, stagnation, high unemployment, there's lack of will to help economically. When there are dangers of the hard type, which means invasion, which means war, there are some who say, it's not my business as long as I am safe. But then when the war knocks at the door of another country, then the answer is, will others help you? For example, Poland was in such a situation when we were asked to join the Libya operation, and we refused. Today, when we are threatened by the war, or war threat from Russia, we expect NATO bases and help. But others will say, well, we asked you, you were not with us, so why should we be with you when you ask us? So this is a very practical side of this societal problems which, through a subsidiarity principle, are located on the European level. The same goes for energy. We have been going through various crises of gas deliveries being cut by Russia. We are now facing the problem of superbly egoistic pipeline called Nord Stream 2, which Germany and Russia want to build, strangling Ukraine, threatening interests of Belarus, Slovakia, and Poland, and many others. So it is a permanent fight. The solidarity is the principle, is the ground of permanent fight of egoism and joint interest. And it is not sufficient to treat that in terms of moral rightness, moral value, because then you reduce yourself to preach what's good, what's bad. But politics is an art of possible, of doing things within what is possible, being given that there are egoism, there are populistic trends now, there are strange political phenomena in Europe, there are threats which are unequally distributed like terrorism all over Europe. There are parts of Europe which are threatened, parts which are relatively safe. So trying to close up, I would say that most of the societal problems today tend to be concentrated, at least in our part of the world, on the regional level. And to be able to face them, to be able to respond, and to be able to implement or to realize our interests of economic nature, political nature, environmental, energetic, or whatever. We need to act together. And it looks like that the necessity, logics, rationality are clear on that, but the mentality of the societies is behind. And this is, I would say, one of the main reasons why there's such a divergence between the promise of Commonwealth of Europe and the performance, which is unfortunately not good or failing. And if you were looking for a word which is the most commonly, most often used in Europe, is crisis. Everything is in crisis. Society is in crisis, economy is in crisis, neighborhood is in crisis, security, everything. So it's good that you ask such general questions, but my plea would be that if you continue, be more specific, because you have to descend to the reality level if you want to deliver. And if you do not deliver, people will not understand you. If they will not understand you, they will not support you. And there is chaos. And we have other responsibilities than feeding chaos. We are supposed to deliver security and prosperity. Thank you for your attention.
Now we'll proceed to the discussion panel. If there are none questions now, but I'm pretty sure that there will be in a second. So that is the time when you have to focus and just create some specific questions. I've got a question to you, sir. If the European Union have some concerns about the current situation in Poland, I mean, in a political way? If yes, what kind of?
I mean,
you may sit if you want.
No problem. The short answer is no. It is so busy. I am just coming from Brussels, and on Wednesday evening we had a presidency of my political family, and on Thursday we had the EPP summit, which is just before the main summit, with Juncker and Tusk and Merkel and everybody. And not a word about Poland. I'm sorry. I mean, it looks like differently when you look at this TV here and you read the press. You think everybody's looking into Article 97 of Constitutional Tribunal, I guess. So politically correct answer would be yes, Europe is terribly concerned and worried about the state of affairs in Poland. And the true answer is the real dangers are now Turkish deal and migratory flows, war in Syria, war in Ukraine, possible military confrontation with Russia, and insufficient NATO capacity to respond to the possible Third World War. And rather these things, and not to mention the economic crisis, stagnation and all that stuff. I mean, the list is very long. So I think that this perception that everybody looks at us and worries is perhaps part of our megalomaniac type of approach. Słania sprawa polska, Polska pępkiem świata. No, not yet, or not at all. which does not mean that they would like, I mean, the main messages we are getting, sort it out. Please sort it out. I had a meeting 3 to 3 with Chancellor Merkel on Thursday afternoon. Really not a question. There is a question of Russia sanctions and the question of migration and so forth. So they know, but they think we should do it ourselves and quick, and we should not bother them.
Thank you very much. So from now on, I feel really safe. Thank you.
No, don't feel safe.
Okay, next question, please.
I have one question. Is it possible that the next big ransomware
First, the deputy head of the border guard of Ukraine has been telling us already weeks ago that Russian security services are preparing a channel. So it's being engineered and orchestrated as Russians have been channeling migrants from Syria via Finnish and Norwegian border. So all that is not spontaneous, all that is pre-cooked. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is that it will not be like in Greece. That first they will have to cross through Black Sea. By the way, already last autumn in Syrian refugee camps in Turkey there were brochures distributed showing this road. It's Black Sea, Moldova, Transnistria, Ukraine, Polish eastern border. But I don't think that we will behave like Greeks, because Greeks were letting them pass. Even if you recall the late night, 1 year ago or so, negotiations with Tsipras, Prime Minister of Greece, he threatened at 4 in the morning, Chancellor Merkel, I'll let all the migrants in if you don't give me the bailout money. And then he got the money, but he did not revoke the action. Look, why there are no migrants crossing from Morocco to Spain? They're flying from Morocco to Istanbul to go to the Greek islands. What I'm trying to say that the problem is not the migratory, I mean, yes, but the problem is the weakness of the borders, or unwillingness of Greeks and Italians to protect our external borders. Unfortunately, Europe is realizing and coming to this undeniable conclusion too late. Who is guilty and what is guilty? The Willkommenpolitik of Germany. They felt invited. I heard myself with my own ears Tusk coming after having visited Turkish and Jordan, Syrian refugee camps, saying all the people, just normal people in the tents, told me they feel invited to Europe. They feel invited to Europe. Only now, the message is, please don't come. So if it will hold, the so-called Balkan route will be blocked, is blocked, de facto. So they'll try. What I had yesterday was that my Maltese colleague and my Spanish colleagues said that now they return from Turkey and attempt passing Mediterranean, probably in 2 or 3, warmer weather will be there, to Lampedusa, Sicily and so forth, and Malta, and perhaps back to where it started. I didn't even know that it started in Canary Islands. But the passage via Ukraine and Poland is possible. Then you have the strange reaction because I'm just telling you how the discussion looked like. Okay, so they will come from the east. You did not show solidarity. You didn't want to take the refugees. So now we'll have them, and now it's your problem. When we've been trying to tell them, please tackle the immigration problem on equal footing because we have the immigrants from Ukraine, 1 to 1.5 million in Poland. And there is 1.7 million in Ukraine of IDPs, which means internally displaced persons, plus, and within it 700,000 outside of Ukraine. They've been trying to put the formulations into the documents in Parliament saying, let's treat the inflow of migrants from south and from east on an equal basis. And then let's ask about solidarity, or sharing the burden. They say no. Always our formulations were refused. What does it mean? That there's never intention in Western Europe to share the burden with Eastern Europe. Migrants from south, yes. Migrants from east, no. For that reason, on that I'm very close to the Orban position.
How much? Yes, please.
As you mentioned that our problem might be Europe without borders.
Schengen is a value. Some of youngsters like you, they don't even imagine that you have to show your passport to the frontier. But then, without that you can live. Now when I'm landing in Brussels, I show my passport. Last week I was coming from Strasbourg. In Strasbourg airport, flying to Frankfurt, I had to show my passport. But you can live with it. The problem is of economic nature. If the long queues of lorries with traded goods have to stop, that produces, makes an impact of economic character which will be counted in billions of euros. It's still, I mean, you can live with it. But it is an economic problem, primarily, obviously psychological for tourists, for us, for every citizen who wants to travel and does not want to stop and to show the passport. Now Schengen is partly suspended. There are some frontiers, which I mentioned. There's now Belgian-France frontier, which is controlled because of the Calais village, and so forth. For the moment, on our side, there's no Schengen suspension. It does not mean that it may not happen. I think that Schengen will survive. The condition is that if you have border-free space like Schengen, you have to really protect your external borders. If you do not protect, then you move the Schengen, and now de facto Schengen border is not the Greek one. Is the border between Macedonia, some call it Fyrom, and Greece. So I was in favor of kicking out Greece out of, or at least threatening Greece. If you do not protect external borders, please leave the Schengen area. Obviously it is also slightly politically incorrect. But only now, when the Balkan route was closed, and it is since last Monday, suddenly those people stopped coming. And it is not yet certain whether the NATO presence, NATO Navy vessels in the waters of between Turkey and Greece, when they were able to protect. Greece has a huge navy. They are not using it because they don't want. Yes, they should change the constitution. But why, with the Navy of Italy, Navy of Greece, they are not able to protect the border? I know this is more difficult if it is maritime border, it's more permeable, it's more difficult or costly. But Union is giving and is ready to give financial assistance to Greece to do that. So it's much more contrary to the common perception. It is much more the problem of political will, or lack of political will, than physical inability to protect external borders. And once we protect, I'm coming back to the question, we have Schengen. If not, goodbye Schengen.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions on the floor? Yes, please.
So I want to ask you about
No, first of all, I think I just gave an answer. I'll do what Orban did. I would build a fence and control and allow in only true refugees, those who need international protection under the Geneva Convention, threatened by war, and not let everybody without any control. It was a fatal mistake to unilaterally declare that the Dublin Convention is dead. We stopped controlling. We let hundreds of thousands of people entering without any control, which has a very clear and direct link to the terrorism threat. We know that from the sources, from intelligence, we know that between 2 to 5% of the migratory flows from south, which means Middle East, are jihadist Islamic State soldiers. So the short answer, we should stop them. We should only take children and women, or only those who are really escaping bombing. But the three problems, and EU started from the wrong side. We started by quarreling how to relocate refugees, which was wrong. At that time we were accused, blamed and shamed for not showing solidarity, with the background that our migrants are not counted. Then, and at that time, I remember when raising the problem of external borders, people shouted at us in the parliament. You who raised the problem that we should control the external borders, you are unhuman because you are against the relocation. So it was politically incorrect to call, still a few months ago, for protection of external borders. Now it is an elementary truth. But the real answer to your question is root causes. Where those migrants come. Some of them come for economic reasons, they want better life. And to them we should say no. And send clear signals. You are not welcome, you are not invited. And if a member state wants cheap labor, if the industrialists of this country come to the Chancellor and say, this year we need 800,000 workers, and then every year 500,000, so this country should do it on its own account, and not take qualified and all others distribute to others. That's dishonest. And then just tackle the problem of humanitarian nature, which means, which was not the case, properly fund the refugee camps where they are, but the really end reason and root cause is the war. Why? The war is the source of migratory flow. And we've been naively, stupidly allowing Putin to go into Syria, to bomb Syria, producing tens of thousands of new refugees. So the answer is liquidate the war. If there is no war, no refugees, or at least not refugees or migrants in such big numbers, which are not absorbable, because they go beyond the absorption capacity of EU. But beyond, there's another problem, which is also on the verge of what is politically correct or not. It's about multi-culti society. Western Europe went into it, then declared a few years ago, Cameron, Merkel, multi-culti failed. But by inviting millions, they dramatically aggravate the situation. And the legal base on which this proposal to relocate hundreds of thousands of people is very doubtful, because it was the competence under the Lisbon Treaty of member states to tackle the problem of asylum seekers counted in tens, dozens, hundreds, but not in millions. Nobody gave, under the treaties of the European Union, the competence to change the ethnic structure of societies and nations. We went too far. And now there's an attempt to correct. When I was leaving Brussels, there was an agreement to relocate 75,000, anyway, when I was at the beginning on Thursday, they spoke about unlimited number of Syrian one-to-one to be relocated. When I was leaving, it was already capped this night. No more than, I don't remember the figure. And then all the rest of relocation will be voluntary. But there's no agreement to pay 3 plus 3 billion euros for keeping them in Turkey. Everybody says yes, but nobody pays. There is widely contested, and rightly so, the principle to make concessions in terms of visa-free to Turkey, which does not fulfill the conditions, which violates human rights, and so forth, simply does not fulfill the conditions, not to mention does not fulfill the conditions to open new negotiating chapters. Bad behavior of Turkey, which is blackmailing Europe, is being rewarded with good treatment on harsh and uncomparably tougher levels than EU is treating Ukraine or Moldova. There's a stark asymmetry of treatment, double standards, something which should not exist. So I'm very doubtful whether this approach is sufficient. What we would need would be to send our troops to Syria and to kill the root causes, the origin, the source of the conflict and the source of the migratory pressure. And all other states, be it Pakistan, Afghanistan, Morocco, conclude bilateral agreements saying you will trade with us, you will get huge, by the way, amount of development aid under the condition that you control the outgoing flows of migration from your countries. When unable to receive 69 million people. Now, according to UN data, there are 69 potential refugees waiting. All of them would dream to come here. But the problem in Europe is that they dream to come to some parts of Europe, not to all of them. They don't want to come to Poland. They want to go to the countries which are rich and which pay huge benefits to them. So, very complex.